Hi everyone, it's been a while. My name is Leela Sinha, and this is the Everyday Saris video podcast. I'm trying a new spot in the house. We'll see how this goes. But it's my birthday today, and one of the Indian traditions around birthdays is that you wear a new piece of clothing on your birthday. Now, I didn't plan very well for this. It's one of the problems I have, and so I didn't actually make sure that I had a brand new sari, but this one's almost new. It's from Maharastra. I bought it in Mumbai, and what's special about it is that it's a 9-yard sari. So it's from Maharastra. I bought it in Mumbai, which is one of the only states where you can get a 9-yard sari these days, because the drape is specific to Maharashtra. I have it on good authority. I think I heard it on a Maharashtrian historical museum video piece that that the reason Maharashtrian saris are bifurcated, you'll see with a 9-yard sari, you have a lot of options, but one of them is to wear it like pants, and that's what I'm going to show you today. So the reason for this bifurcated drape is that apparently Maharashtrian warrior women needed to wear them into battle. And you can't ride astride a horse when you're wearing, well, it's harder to ride astride when you're wearing something that isn't bifurcated. So it's bifurcated. Now, it starts the same way as all the other saris, except that you cannot wear a petticoat under it. So what color your underwear is makes a huge difference. I would prefer to have underwear that didn't say Calvin Klein all over them, but I don't. So here we are. You want your underwear to be a close match in terms of darkness or lightness to your sari, otherwise it's going to show through. Or it can be a close match to your legs. That's also a possibility. But and I had to stop this morning and actually overlock the edge of the sari because I hadn't done that yet on it. So we're going to start with the pinch and tie, just as always. And I'm going for a fairly unobtrusive knot, among other reasons, because this is 9 yards of fabric, and as you're about to see, 9 yards of fabric is a lot of fabric. So here we are, and now we're going to wrap it around, and you'll notice that because the sari is so long, what I did was I turned around instead of wrapping the sari fabric, all gazillion yards of it around me. It's not a gazillion yards, it's 9, but it feels like a gazillion yards. See, look at all that fabric. So I'm going to just drape that, and I'm going to let it hang a little long, because if I do that, then I'm going to have a little more leeway later. And now, we're just, in general, when you drape your pallu, a longer pallu is sort of reads as more formal. But in this particular case, there are a lot of things. Now, I have to apologize to anybody who's from Maharashtra who's watching me do this, because I'm probably going to screw things up. I did ask the people that work in my grandmother's house to show me how to do this, and the first time I asked, they said they didn't know. The second time I asked, they said they did, so maybe they learned in the intervening year, but I'm glad that they said that they did, because it's really important, I think, to maintain these kinds of traditions, and it's hard in a modern world where everybody wants you to be efficient and fast. And old, especially women's word of mouth knowledge often gets lost. Not that we in the West would know anything about that, but it's super common over there. Anyway, so you can see that I'm just like pleating forever. This is much more than the usual 5 or 6 pleats. And it's possible for the thing to get turned around and twisted, and you just have to kind of keep messing with it until it hangs properly. As with a lot of saris, it's what my family would call a shake 'em and pull 'em. That is a family expression that I don't remember if I've explained it to you folks before. My mom saw somebody making a kind of snack food that is made by shaking a sieve full of batter into hot oil so that you get these little tiny balls of fried stuff, and then scooping them out super fast so they don't burn and they don't get soggy. And my mom, as a young bride, said, well, how hard can it be? You just shake them and pull them. And she tried to do it. Anyway, so now things that look like they should be easier than they are shake them and pull them in our family. So you can see I've got an enormous mass of pleats here. This is normal. You're going to do this and you're going to be like, oh my God, look at all those pleats. And I'm going to be like, yes, that's true. Now, one of the challenges is I'm wearing socks. And you would think that that wouldn't be that big a deal. But you would be wrong. Because one of the things that goes into making a sari really work or not work is friction. So I'm holding this giant mass of pleats against my belly, and if I were doing a formal version of this drape, I would fuss with these even more, but they're pretty good. That's pretty good for me. And I'm going to pull that out from my waist and tuck them all flat in. So you notice that I put my hand on top of where they were going, on top of that middle section, because how they look at the top doesn't matter. What matters is how they look in the middle. So now that all those pleats are pleated, you can see I've got this giant mass. Some people will tell you that you turn the mass outward and you make a banana instead of tucking it inward, but I like to tuck it outward. Anyway, let me just double check to make sure this is right, because now I'm looking at this and I'm like, I'm not sure what's going on, but it looks inside out. It is inside out. That's fascinating. Huh. What did I do? Did I get it upside down? All right, well, whatever I just did, it's not right, because inside out is not how this is going to go. So, it's possible that I got it upside down. One of the things about saris, that's exactly what I did. Okay, we're going to start over. Welcome to wearing a sari. You cannot be too attached, even if you have perfect pleats, because sometimes you get it wrong, like I just did. So, what I just did was I flipped it top to bottom. So I picked it up, and without checking which side the design was the right side, I started putting it on, and I should have checked. So here we are, back to the beginning. I'm going to knot it and talk a lot again while we pleat. So I'm going to do the exact same thing I did before. I'm going to turn around to get the fabric on the correct side of me, because this is 9 yards. Now, in India especially, you would not let this all sit on the floor, because the floors are dirtier. They're just, grime accumulates in a way that it doesn't seem to accumulate here. So you would generally let your sari accumulate, pile up on a bed or a chair or a table or something. Generally you get dressed in your bedroom. So, okay, we're back to the pleating stage. I think one of the interesting things about saris is that when you're pleating a sari, you can be as hasty and careless or as finicky as you like. And what you do in this moment will really affect how the sari looks when you're done. So, take that into consideration. If you're just, throwing on a sari so you have something to wear, so that you're not naked, that's one thing. But if you're going to go out, I always feel, I won't even say that other people should do this, but I always feel like I'm sort of repping, because people pay attention. And so when I put on my saris, I tend to feel like I have to try at least if I'm going out. If I'm not going out, that's a whole other story. I might be just as annoyed at putting on clothes as I often am, and I'll just be like, ugh, whatever. But here we are. You can see it wasn't that much more time to drop it and repleat it so that it's right side out. I should have noticed that earlier, because the design was on the wrong side in the pleats, and I did see that, and then I was like, no, I must be wrong. No, I was right. So one of the things about not having a fall, you'll notice if you get a 9-yard sari from someone else that that they won't have had a fall stitched on it. The fall is, remember, that heavy piece of fabric that's on the inside that protects the sari from getting kicked to death. But you don't really need one on a sari like this, because as you'll see, you don't kick your sari when it's bifurcated. Now, you can again see I've done a reasonably good job of making tidy pleats. They're not perfect, but they're reasonably close. And you'll notice that I'm very interested in how they're hanging right where my waist is, where they're going to get tucked in, because that's what's going to affect how the sari looks when I put it on, when I'm done getting dressed. The more even the pleats are in that spot, the better off we are. Okay. Now the sari is right side out, and I'm going to do that same maneuver where I tuck that giant bundle of pleats into my waist, and it looks okay. You know, it would be better if this pleat were pulled out here. You know, if the pleats are either stacked entirely on top of each other or if they fan out perfectly evenly. That's kind of the goal, but it's a goal. So now what we do is we reach and we pick up the two edges. And as evenly as you can, you walk your fingers in. Now the reason I'm doing this is because I'm looking for the middle of the pleats. But the middle of the pleats is really hard to guess at. And it's really easy to just kind of inchworm your way in until you find the middle. Okay, so this is the middle of the sari. Now, I'm going to spread my legs apart. Now, I'll get back to the socks in a minute. I'm going to spread my legs apart and pass this middle point through my legs, and without losing the middle point, I'm going to pass it from hand to hand so it's behind me. Okay? Now, this is the next part where you can affect how pretty the sari looks. Because, in addition to checking to see, you know, how the pleat distribution actually went, we're also going to be pulling some of this fabric through the middle. Pull, 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 pull. And as I do this, what I'm looking for is some kind of even distribution between my legs. And simultaneously, something that feels sustainable back here. Now again, I apologize to any Maharastrans for whom I am messing things up. This is not the drape that my family grew up with, although it is the drape my father grew up around. We moved from Bihar. My father's family, moved from Bihar to Maharastra when my father was a small child. And, you know, I don't actually know what would have happened if my father had been a girl. Like, I don't know if the girls, my father's aunts, my father's sisters rather, learned more about how to wear Maharashtrian drapes because they grew up in Maharashtra, or not, because they all wore schoolgirl uniforms, which were all, you know, directly from the British. So this is the tweaking moment. You adjust back and forth, and the goal, the ideal, is that this border will show as a double border kind of straight up the middle of the back. I always have trouble with this. I know that's the point. Not the trouble, but I know what I'm aiming for. But I always struggle with it. And so, you know, and this section here can be very nicely pleated, or it can just be gathered. And if it's gathered, it can be gathered just like I just did, in fists, or it can be gathered like this. And if it's gathered like this, it sort of mimics the pleats without quite so much fuss as pleats usually require. So I'm just gathering these pleats, gathering this fabric. And what I'm going for is something I won't trip over on my ankles, because that part's important. It's a little bit of a stretch to get that massive pleats into my waistline back there, but part of what's going to happen is this is going to sink a little bit. I started with it at a really high point, and it's going to sink down a little, so I want to accommodate that. And then I want to make sure that that's tucked up. Now, I've seen it both ways with the pallu. I've seen the pallu wrapped around and tucked in front, and I've seen the back part come over that wrapped pallu and not. I don't actually know which one is authentic. It's hard to tell on the internet. But this is a basic bifurcated drape. You'll notice I have full range of motion. Plenty of fabric in my crotch. It feels a little awkward the first time you wear it because there is a lot of fabric going through there. You can also wear it much looser. I like it tight. I like to pull it up, and that's partially because that means I don't trip over the ankle parts, and it's partially because I'm short, and it's partially because I tend to be active. But if you were going to a fancy wedding, you might actually drape it much looser, much looser, so that this part here, these borders here, would come in a much more gentle drape upwards, and there would be a lot more room, a lot more fabric down by my ankles. That's also a perfectly common way to do it. And at the other end, you'll see a lot of women in Mumbai now wearing a 6-yard sari like this. And in order to do that, they usually have a very fine cotton, and they tuck it right up. You know, you'll see it's up to their knees. And that's also seems to be perfectly acceptable for particular class spaces, for particular people. So you have to really think about your context. You know, as in the United States, what you wear and how you wear it says something about who you are, your social location, what your social responsibilities are or aren't, what your social behavior is going to be. And so you really want to think about what you're projecting, especially if you're not used to Indian culture. So it's an interesting conversation to have, right? But also, this is one of the most practical drapes because you can do anything in it. You can go bike riding. I've seen people surfing even in non-bifurcated drapes, but certainly the bifurcation helps. Construction workers wear this all the time because if you need to climb up and down a ladder or scaffolding, you probably want something that goes between your legs. So it's great, it's functional, it's comfortable. How do you pee? Important questions, right? So in this one, how you pee is you pull out this center pleat and then you sit down. Because that's how I pee. It seems like it should be possible, although I have not had the opportunity to ask anyone. It should be possible to just pull up one leg, open it up, and move the rest of the sari to one side. It seems a little risky to me, but it also seems like it should totally be possible. So I guess that's up to you to experiment. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, this is a Maharastran drape for a 9-yard sari. And you can see that in its completed form, it's bifurcated, it's comfy, it's still custom fitted. Oh, the socks. The addendum about the socks. So you'd think that wearing socks wouldn't matter that much. But because the sock affects the amount of friction exerted against the bottom of the sari when you're walking, I have found that wearing socks both with a regular navy drape and with this drape and with most drapes actually can cause some pretty serious wardrobe malfunctions over the course of a day. Ways to minimize that: wear a slippery sari with no fall, because if the fall is cotton, then it doesn't matter if the sari is slippery or not. And also, if you're wearing a sari, with socks, try and keep the socks low, or just don't wear them. I mean, really, because otherwise, every time you take a step, the sock tugs on the sari just a little bit, and over time, over the course of a long walk or whatever, that actually does affect the way the sari functions. Your other option is to wear a taller sock that's slick, something that's soft and slippery and doesn't offer a lot of friction. My socks are all cotton. The other thing you should think about in the same realm is shoes. If the tops of your shoes or the sides of your shoes have things like buckles or laces that the sari can catch on, that might affect the functioning of the sari. Try your intended shoes with your intended sari before the big day. I had one time when I was doing a very important sermon, and I had worn boots with buckles on the outside and a sari with heavy embroidery around the hem, which had lots of loose threads on the backside. And it kept getting caught, and it kept getting caught. And in a panic, right before I went on stage, I had to, I took some blue masking tape and taped it over the buckles on my boots so that I could avoid having my sari catch on them. But it's worth thinking about how westernized shoes interact with non-westernized clothes. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you're having a fabulous day, and best greetings to you, and I'll see you soon.